Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, December 28th, and we're starting incredibly late, so we're going to have to probably run with some extra news that we'll just roll over to Monday. We're going to have to play a lot of games. Obviously I've been having... this might be the end of my most recent insomnia mistake, insomnia outbreak, or whatever, flare-up I guess is what you might call it. See, we need to play Hunter cards, we need to win with Mage and Shaman, and then maybe we need to play Warlock cards, so that's, I think, all we need to do. I don't think we need to hop back into this. So let's just play some Ranked Hunter to start off with. So, being a somewhat cloudy, gloomy day, it seems, I fell asleep at like 7 in the morning today, and I woke up at 6 in the evening, which is a, you know, almost 12-hour, like, sleep cycle, which means I've finally gotten away from what I was doing before, which was sleeping for like an hour and then then waking up and doing some recording for a couple hours, and then taking another nap for an hour, and just, you know, having 3-4 naps in a single 24-hour period. So next week might be better. No promises, but might be better. Unfortunately, for now, that means I woke up really, really late. And and so this is going to be a late night stream, and we surprisingly have a decent amount of games that came out. I'm not sure why it really breaks down that way. I guess maybe people are taking an opinion that I would disagree with, that people are now past Christmas and maybe they've got like their Christmas money, that they could spend on new games. Like, that's kind of the only thing I could understand why we're kind of back to normal with the number of games that came out on Steam, and we'll have to see how good these games are. News-wise, otherwise, not a lot. I'm recording Black Mirror 3, the point-and-click adventure game. It is bad, like the entire Black Mirror series has been bad. It didn't crash like Black Mirror 2, at least, so it's actually seems to be a lot more playable, but near the end of the first chapter, I assume what happened here is they had different teams making different chapters. You are locked in a cabin, which I didn't even know I was locked in the cabin, because I never tried to open the door to leave the cabin. Instead, I was just put in a cabin with a bunch of items to pick up, which doubled, or nearly doubled, the inventory of what I had. So you're in this tiny little room, you pick up 6-7 different items, you use all these items to cut a hole in the floor to leave the cabin, and I was just doing that because I thought I was going to cut the hole in the floor and then end up in a different location. But no, you don't end up in a different location at all. And really, the only reason why this puzzle feels like it existed, other than it lines up with the storyline, is because they wanted you to have a certain number of items, or certain specific items, in your inventory for the beginning of Act 2. Up until that point, you really weren't picking up any items that you didn't need or didn't want to use. So it goes from a game where you're only gonna find one item, and when you find that one item, you're gonna basically know what that item is for, to a game where you just have a ridiculous amount of items that who knows what they could be used for. I really am not a fan of what I'm calling the natural puzzle style of Black Mirror anyways. What I mean by that is you have a very natural quest at the beginning of the first chapter to get a copy of your police file, and you don't really know that's what you're supposed to do until you call your lawyer, and you don't really know that you're supposed to call your lawyer until the policeman just tells you to call your lawyer. So instead of having like an overarching goal, or the main character being smart enough to say, hey, I should do this, it instead is a case of somebody is always just kind of telling you what to do, and they're only telling you the next step of what you need to do. And there's no crazy, silly moon logic to any of the puzzles. You don't get a copy of your police file by, say, poisoning the police officer who's looking at its coffee with a diuretic and having them run to the bathroom. No, you get a copy of your police file by fixing the photocopier in a terrible puzzle. It was probably worse for me since I actually know electronics, and the puzzle was not really following any logic in my mind. And so you just fix the photocopier, the policeman photocopies a copy, he says he's gonna mail it to your lawyer instead of hand it to you, and then you just get a menu and stick it in the mailbox outside so that you can steal it from the mailbox. It's like a very simplistic, reasonable solution to a point and click adventure challenge, and that's just boring. Like, if you take the comedy and the silliness out of point and click adventures, you really are just left with a boring game. Particularly in the Black Mirror series, it's supposed to be kind of a horror murder mystery, I think, but it doesn't really play that well. So yeah, I'm kind of not even sure if they know what they're aiming for as far as the style of game it is. In Black Mirror 3, you're playing a continuation of Black Mirror 2, which I'm pretty sure Black Mirror 2 came out in 2008 and Black Mirror 3 came out in 2011, so even people who bought the game brand new would have had to wait 3 years, and it's not explaining anything or reminding you of anything, so you would have had to have played the awful Black Mirror 2 to then play Black Mirror 3 to understand what's going on in a lot of ways. And the game is pretty much directly saying that you are either crazy or possessed, like the first game, although the first game really only hinted at it because you were having dreams. This time you're having straight up hallucinations, so my guess is the only way you could put a twist on this is if it turned out you are having hallucinations and you're crazy, but you aren't actually doing anything illegal in that process. I'm gonna go ahead and use this. I finished the Room 3. I'm not sure if I even mentioned it. Super short, dull, whatever. I streamed part 2 of the end of the year Steam follow list cleanup, and it was another 2 hours, and I ran into one game that said it's like a slightly worse version of a game of the Room 1, and I'm like, well, if this game is worse than the Room 1, then I didn't like the Room 1 that well, then I'm going to take that as an opportunity to know that I should not buy it, and so I removed that from the follow list. Although, in all fairness, a significant amount of the of the games on the follow list are getting promoted to the wish list. Like, for the most part, it was a pretty good filtering. I do a pretty good job during these streams to filter out games and not put them on the follow list unless they're of a certain level of quality. I guess what might happen, because of Wednesday that this kind of happened too, is we may actually somehow figure out a way to get through all the daily quests pretty quickly. But don't I have to do all 3 because it's Friday? Yeah, I think I do. So I don't know how that would happen, honestly, now that I think about it. Alright, let's do this. And guess I'm just gonna take the victory. We are playing ranked, so I might as well do that. I'm listening to Giant Bomb's end of the year deliberations. They, in my opinion, maybe screwed up, maybe didn't. Like, I guess it really is just gonna come down to a matter of taste. What they did is, for the first 3 of 5 podcasts, which were about 4 or 5 hours long, they just had people describing the games that they wanted on to talk about for the end of the year. So it's kind of like no real list at all. And if somebody wanted it on a list, they just let them put it on the list. Which I guess just means almost everybody gets a nomination, a participation award, basically, for being nominated, because there was no pushback or challenge for that. And now, when that was first described, that was rather intriguing. Unfortunately, like, within 5 minutes of the first podcast, the fact that have everybody in California and basically in mainstream video game journalism in general is highly susceptible and used to groupthink. So there was, within 5 minutes, people were saying, should I put this on this list? And even they were like telling them, it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. If you want it on the list, it goes on the list. But they cannot get away from that kowtowing mentality, whereas they need approval and they need the agreement of the group, which is dumb. And inherently, a website, which is a group of authors coming together and making a combined top 10 list of anything, is ridiculous. Like, it basically admits that none of the writers, critics at Giant Bomb, in this case, none of their opinions are specific or unique or matter. And that's totally true. Like, there's no way that I know of, or no way I'd ever spend the time to figure this out, where I would go to Giant Bomb's website and say, I just want to listen to all of Abby Hepburn's reviews and her top 10 list. They still are doing individual top 10 lists, but it doesn't really even matter. But the other thing I'm thinking about when I'm listening to this is, if my opinion was in the room, how would I try to steer or agree with this? And you know, the thought I had, and this is silly, is I would probably quit. Like, at the beginning, I'd just say, I don't believe in group consensus when talking about opinions and criticisms, because that's ridiculous in my mind. So I'm just going to quit right now, and you can hire me back when you're done with the end of the year deliberations. And you know what? They probably wouldn't hire me back if I was working at Giant Bomb. The two things I can be critical about from what I've heard, I haven't listened to all of what their stream is, and I haven't listened to most of the last podcast, which would be Game of the Year and stuff, is none of them really covered any games that were small. Like, none of them really covered any small independent games, with a few exceptions. But even in those few exceptions, it's kind of hard to say things like Celeste are small when they're so overly hyped. And covered by basically everybody. None of them covered pretty much any Japanese games, which is the standard Western video game media anti-Japanese stance. Like, I don't think it's particularly even 100% recognized in their own minds, but they just, like, having grown up in the West, not playing too many Japanese games, you develop a natural liking for what is familiar, and video game critics are not good journalists, generally speaking, and so they don't ever push themselves to expand their horizons and play games they haven't played before. And if in the rare occasion that somebody who's low man on the totem pole is forced to play a Japanese game, they usually approach it with hostility and negativity and don't give them a fair shake in the first place. They have Giant Bomb has the hot mess, like the worst thing to happen, or worst thing to have been done throughout the year, and they mentioned like Fallout 76, which and Bethesda. Okay, yeah, fair enough. They mentioned the IGN plagiarist, which I'm a little surprised they mentioned that, because that was more of a story that was trying to be buried, I would imagine. Like, I imagine IGN would have done everything in their power to convince people to underreport on the plagiarism there. But then they really didn't mention Valve at all, and I think Valve totally deserves to be in that hot mess category, because if you want to phrase it this way, you can still phrase it this way, so that people would, people that are even happy about Valve's rogue employee or Valve's rogue rules, whichever it is, as far as not allowing games with anime girls that happen to be in outfits that they think look like school outfits. There's a lack of leadership at Valve. that has been more prevalent this year than previous years, but it's been around pretty much from the word go. This is what Valve was designed on. Is Gabe Newell worked for Microsoft. Microsoft is a company known for too much leadership. He makes Valve. Valve has no leadership. Gabe Newell is a weak leader. He doesn't want to be the leader, clearly, and somebody needs to be in there to be in charge. That shows through when you have Artifact come out and be a failure. It shows through when you have no plan and you start censoring games, and then you come back and you say, well, we're not going to censor what's on our storefront, we're not going to be the tastemakers. Then you come back and you change your opinion on that. This is all weak leadership, regardless of how you fall on the final decision or how the decision is being implemented right now, because who knows, next week it could change again. I think it was a weak leadership decision to hire Campo Santo. We will have to, I suppose, wait and see a little bit to see if those employees ever create anything in Valve that justifies them being hired. I think this year, as far as Steam sales, haven't been amazingly good. Flash sales should have never gone away, and the fact that we've gotten a growing amount of competition against Valve with other storefronts is another indicator that leadership at Valve did not see it coming, and otherwise they would have done something to stop, to compete more against things like the Epic Store. So yeah, I would say Valve has been one of the hottest messes, but it wasn't brought up on Giant Mom, but not at all. Particularly for PCs. Like they brought up an interesting thought that perhaps the reason why Fallout 76 was only released through the Bethesda launcher is because Valve implemented the no questions asked 2-hour refund policy, and Bethesda knew that Fallout 76 was going to... Wait, let me double check that I actually need to play this, or... No, I don't. Mage and Shaman. Now, alright. I think I can win a little bit more with the Mage, and I'd like to keep the streak going. Yeah, it could be that. It certainly could be the case that Bethesda knew they were going to release a terrible game. It would have been hard for them to kind of not know that. And they didn't want people refunding like crazy. It could very well be this is the reason why Epic made their own launcher. The idea that in the background and the secret, the idea of being consumer friendly and having refund policies is like horribly objectionable to the game developers. I could see that. Unfortunately, I think reality is going to smack the Bethesda launcher and Epic launcher in the face if they think they can get away without giving refunds, particularly in countries outside of the notoriously anti-consumer United States. Like, once you get into Europe and Australia, you gotta give refunds. Valve has been fighting these kind of legal fights for years and losing them, trying not to give refunds. That's why Valve really finally implemented the no questions asked refunds policy, is trying to comply and avoid getting sued some more in Australia and in Europe.
To my side.
And the European Union seems, and I could be wrong about this, like, I know some of the laws, like the GDPR, seems to apply to all European citizens in and out of Europe, which then violates the sovereignty of all other countries and around the world. Because if you were not talking about a data protection law, if the European Union passed a law saying that all European citizens could murder non-European citizens with immunity, that would not fly. You are subject to the laws of the land. It has been a long established international law agreement. So the opposite is also true. And I'm sure that you are not subject to laws of another land. Although maybe that one hasn't been solidified as much as it should be. So yeah, there's some problems with that, but that's getting into politics when I'm supposed to be talking about video games. So let's start talking about video games. Gematsu has an article. Nico Para Volume 2 for the PS4 and Switch launches in February. It's going to support English, Japanese, and Chinese language options. Let's see. It's already on Steam. It's a visual novel. I think it's cat girls working in a cafe, if I was to guess by the image I'm seeing.
We have many secrets.
I found it first.
Do that. Let's see. Interesting. This is not zoomed in right. Alright, well, I've changed my zoom, my high DPI settings on my computer to properly be able to view Black Mirror 3, because there's a weird bug that messes up the cursor if you have the high DPI setting on Windows enabled. I'm thinking I may just live with it. Windows 10 has kind of changed how it does that now, so by the default old setting of adjusting it for everything probably isn't really necessary anymore. I'll just have to wait and see if I run into something that really is just too small for my old eyes to see. So, you know, if I could keep it at 100%, I then would never really have to change it again for the small handful of games that run into that issue. Most games do not run into that issue at all. That was close. No victory. That broke my streak, but that was close. We have a game on Steam called Pamali Indonesian Folklore Horror. This looks like it's probably just a cheap horror game. Like, I'm not sure if it claiming it's going to be an Indonesian folklore horror really means anything in the title, like, because that kind of feels like they're just they're just trying to use that to differentiate itself when it should probably just be called Pameli and then describe itself as based off an Indonesian folklore horror game. Let's see, it's discounted to $4.49. What languages does it support? English, simplified Chinese, and traditional Chinese. See, that doesn't strike to me as Indonesian. They don't speak Chinese in Indonesia. And this really does just look like a basic horror game. How many of these do I really want in my life? I don't think I'm going to put this on the fall list. I think I'm going to start adapting myself a little bit away from horror games because I really don't feel a need to play every dumb little horror game that is really just an asset flip and a low effort game in disguise. Speaking of dumb little games, we have a game on Steam called Voxel Sword, which is just a standard like Roblox asset flip game. In all fairness, this looks like it might be slightly more polished and slightly more focused towards a medieval theme, but look at just how much garbage is on the screen at any one time, even when it's not in 4-player mode. It's just a lot of UI. $7.19 discounted. I honestly don't think I could buy a single game that looks like this at this point. Like, even if it is a good game, this visual Unity asset set has just been so poisoned. The well has been poisoned as far as the way those games look that I wouldn't give them the time of day. Let's see. Next we have another game called Desktop Soccer, which again is the Roblox square polygon style game. I'm really looking here trying to see if there's anything like this. Idea might have been cool, like playing soccer on a table with a bunch of obstacles, but no.
What to do?
Nope, this is just another no for me. Discounted for $7.19. Honestly, if I'm gonna play a soccer game, I probably should start with playing a like good-looking soccer game, 3D soccer game, before I get into something that is half a soccer game and half some like more arcadey style of tabletop recreation, or foosball might be a good equivalent. Next we have VR Cricket. I'm not playing cricket in 2019, I can guarantee that, and I certainly wouldn't be playing it in VR. There's like large white boxes that look like they're just missing textures, and even when you do have textures, they don't feel very filled in. Requires VR, $4.49. That's a pass for me. I wouldn't be surprised if they're all passes today. Let's see. A game called Fitness Boxing Instructor is coming out for the Switch pretty soon. It looks like it's kind of a more modernized version of Wii Fit, although this time they're not using kind of a faceless Wii Fit characters. They're using, I don't know if you would, well, you know what, instead of speculating, why don't I just show it to you and let you make your own decision. I would call this a sharp, realistic Japanese animator style, but I don't know if I'd really call this the moe or anime style. So it's a Japanese animator trying to draw a normal looking person as best as they can, and they've hired voice actors out of Japan that are way well known, and I guess because there's no Wii balance board, boxing is the only thing that really would work. See, they're naming the specific voice actors because voice actors are well known in Japan. They're going with some good diversity here too. Male, female, black and white. Which, you know, as far as boxing goes, there aren't too many white boxers anymore. But then of course they've got to throw in the cheesecake a little bit, so they've got a cheerleader here and somebody who looks like they may be straight out of Frozen. Personally, if you're going to play a boxing game and you want to look at somebody who's fit and physically attractive as a motivator, and the same is true even for real world scenarios. If I went to the gym and was getting instruction from a boxing instructor and they looked less healthy than me or unhealthy in general, I would probably not respect their opinion as much. So yeah, I bet there's no kicking in this, because I bet this is straight up just swinging the Joy-Cons left and right in a pattern. There is a foot stance icon in the lower left-hand corner. It looks like it's an interesting idea. I know that there are certainly some niche people, niche fandoms for the Wii Fit, because Wii became so ubiquitously popular that adults were buying Wiis or getting Wiis somehow, and they were playing Wii bowling, and so Wii Fit was very helpful for them. And a lot of people who would have never played a video game otherwise in their life saw these as good, useful things. Now, the idea that somebody who's just looking for a workout regimen would spend $300 plus on a Switch and then just play Wii Fit is kind of ridiculous, but I can imagine a lot of parents who have kids who have Wiis where they would just borrow it for a while, use it when the kids are at school. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called SAMPRP. That's probably some kind of insult phrase. This looks like this is a troll game trying to be like GTA. It looks a lot like GTA 2 or 3. I don't see anything here other than like a simple asset flip attempt at a game. This doesn't look fun at all. It's 20% off for $1.59, so you know that there's not going to be a lot of funding behind it to turn it into a great game. So, like when you think about Rockstar and how they had all the money in the world to build off their GTA series, that's how those games got to the level of quality that they reached, is simply by building off GTA 1, which sold on controversy, and then that gave them enough money to make GTA 2, which sold on slightly better quality and slightly more controversy, and that kept on snowballing all the way to the most recent GTA game. And honestly, even the most recent GTA game probably isn't that great of quality. Depending on what you really want to do. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Steam reveals the quote best of 2018 lists. Now I looked at these lists and I don't know if it's different for everybody, because what I was seeing was a lot of things that didn't really feel like they would have been on the list if I didn't own so many games already. The Steam store seems to really usually filter out everything I already own, so it really is scraping the bottom of the barrel to suggest new games to me. Which doesn't make a lot of sense when you're trying to make a best of 2018 list, and the list is top sellers, best new releases, top selling VR titles, top early access graduates, which games that came out of early access. That category in particular was surprising because the game Mirror, which is an adult game that has a thumbnail of a Japanese like shrine princess, shrine maiden tied up in bondage as a thumbnail. Like, that's been on my wish list for so long and it's on sale right now. I'm getting to the point where I need to just buy that game so I don't have to scroll past it anymore. That game, Mirror, assumedly was in early access according to that list, and it is one of the top early access grads. At least that's what they're saying. Let's see. Then also there's a category for most played games. They made a tier where it was platinum if it was the 1st to 12th top seller, gold if it was 13th to the 24th top seller, it was silver if it was the 25th to the 40th top seller, and it was bronze if it was the 41st to the 100th top seller. Now notice that that is not a equivalent scale here. There are 12 in the platinum category, 12 in the gold category, and then 15 in the silver category. So they cheated to add 3 more games in there. And then in the bronze category they severely cheated because there's 59 in that category. Let's see, now TechRaptor is mentioning some of the games that it already covered earlier, but yeah. The only thing I guess I could do is I could see if maybe I could look at these lists without being logged in and see if maybe that changes. 3. Can I do all this? Yes, I can. Well, I am logged in right now, so that wouldn't change anything. But yeah, Mirror is still showing up as an early access grad. Most of the games on the rest of the lists that are being shown to me are just not things. For instance, Chinese Parents, which I'm fairly certain is just kind of a troll game, got mentioned on several lists for no reason. Conan Exiles is on the top early access grads. So all of their categories seem to be heavily focused around the idea of what sold the most, not putting any kind of subjective opinion as far as the quality of the games. Alright, well then I guess we're just gonna play Warlock. Which, fair enough. That makes a lot of sense for the storefront to not pick favorites and instead just say, well, these are the top sellers on our storefront. These are the hard numbers as it goes. Now, you can certainly get into the weeds and say, well, the reason why these games were the top sellers on your storefront is because Steam promoted these games over other games. That is, of course, the YouTube issue, certainly, and YouTube's issue right now is that PewDiePie made what I think most people would agree a much better version of YouTube Rewind than what the actual YouTube Rewind was, and they're not gonna put it on trending because that's a curated page front, and I'm pretty sure PewDiePie would never make it onto the blanket trending page ever again. He has made it to gaming trending, which is kind of ridiculous. Like, I would object to calling PewDiePie at this point a gamer. He's more of a comedian. Like, I don't see him. I'm subscribed to him. I don't see any videos of him ever playing games. Maybe he's doing all of that on Twitch. So, yeah. But to be fair, as much as I can be, I think Steam is only really focused for the most part around greed. So if their algorithm is promoting a game, it's because that game is getting played and selling well. I don't think that they're going in and playing tweaks. In fact, it really feels like night and day. Like, every YouTuber that I've ever heard talk about the YouTube algorithm believes that there are rogue employees, or maybe not rogue employees, but there are people going in there messing with the algorithm on YouTube and playing favorites and manipulating it. I don't think that's really the case on Steam. Only one game developer has ever made the claims like that, and lately, and it's kind of unbelievable. Even at that point, like we would really need to see a great example of like an amazing game. If Fortnite came to Steam and Fortnite was never on the front page, that would be crazy. If Fortnite came to Steam and it was always on the front page, that wouldn't be so crazy.
Unleash me.
Let's see.
Nice to meet you.
Any of these gonna die in this move? I don't think so. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Abandoned. This is another one of those dark screenshot horror games. Every single screenshot, you barely can see anything in them. It's free to play, so the price is right, I suppose, but it clearly isn't a good quality product. Yeah, I'm not really sure what, if anything, would convince me to want to play a free-to-play game. Alright, so we need something gone. I can't do anything though. Like, I can hit this, and I can hit this, and I guess I can hit this, and then end the turn. see, next on Steam, we have a game called Toho KSG Story, which looks like it is straight up just a very low effort clone of Donkey Kong. It's kind of funny, you usually don't have a Japanese game like this that is so unpolished and so horrible looking. But that's kind of what this is. Like, I can't call this one a cheap Chinese game or a Russian game at all. This is a cheap Japanese game. This very possibly is designed to look like a Game & Watch, so Donkey Kong Game & Watch clone, but yeah, it's just total garbage.
Your magic shall not save you.
Your soul is mine. Your soul is mine. As you command.
Job done.
There we go. He's just gonna keep on trying to do damage. Bring it on. Okay. Let's do this. Do that.
I'll get right on it.
Do that.
Your soul
And that. Just go ahead and draw a card in the channel. Next we have a game on Steam called Damn the Haze, which is just another dark screenshot horror game. Yep. I swear, even if your game really is this dark, you need to Steam probably needs to reject some of these games and just like run a brightness counter over it. There's a thing in Photoshop called levels, I believe is what it's called. It's been a long time. This game is $4.24, of course not making it to the list. Early access. Yes, but in Photoshop there's this function called levels that tells you just how bright a picture is, like how much red, how much blue, how much green is in it, or you can just combine it. It would be not super difficult for you to have a back-end program. You could probably have it done via command line, via GIMP or Photoshop, to process an image, say what is the brightness of this image, and return that as a number, and then either reject or accept a screenshot based on that. It would be a little bit of work. That's not like, it's not something that you could just immediately implement, but it would be very, very helpful for the consumers. And I'm sure that there's software out there that you could command line batch, like brighten up images, but why would Steam want to change somebody else's screenshots and then get complaints for that? They should just tell the people, like, this is not acceptable. Like, certain thumbnails of certain sizes on YouTube are rejected. That's a little bit easier to do than brightness, but it's certainly doable. And one assumes that the images being posted to Steam are going through several other programs to make sure that there's nothing offensive in them, more than you would realize. companies have access, I've heard, to a whole database of like child pornography that the images then run against like images that some company somehow legally has a whole library of it to see how close it matches. I don't know exactly how they get around with the legality with that, but it seems to happen. Let's see, moving on. TechRaptor has an article. Indie darling Celeste sells over 500,000 copies. Final levels are coming in 2019. I didn't realize that Celeste was not a finished product. Celeste definitely, when they say indie darling, I would rephrase it as overhyped by the mainstream media game. There's nothing wrong with Celeste as far as I can tell. It looks like it is just a standard platformer that's maybe a little bit easier than Super Meat Boy, but it doesn't really seem like it has anything else going for it than that. It has a female protagonist and perhaps a different style of story, but the only reason I think it's really getting hyped is because I believe the mainstream video game media is friendly with the developer. That would be my first guess. Either that or they just latched onto it. It hasn't been a really great year for indie games anyways in 2018 because it was so full of so many AAA games and AA games that came out. Like, I really can't think of any indie game that would have been a breakout hit that should have been covered. And honestly, I'm not sure that there every year will be a breakout indie hit. When I think about like The Binding of Isaac in comparison, that's a game that probably wouldn't have been given any coverage if it had come out this year.
Why do you call?
Moving on, give Mr. Trust an article. BioWare co-founder inducted into the Order of Canada, Greg Zchuk, Z-E-S-C-H-U-K, and well, it's both co-founders, and Ray Muzyka, M-U-Z-Y-K-A, two of the original co-founders of BioWare, have been named members of the Order of Canada, an honor reserved for those deemed to have enriched the lives of others and made a difference in Canada through their actions and achievements. Now, this probably, a lot of times when you get awards, it means your career is over. And you're never going to do anything else to one-up that award. For BioWare, I suspect that very much is the case. Like, BioWare is on its last legs with Mass Effect Andromeda's failure. The company is probably going to get shuttered in 2019. I'm not sure if the co-founders even work for BioWare anymore. 103 Canadians received the honor this year, alongside an author, a playwright, an Olympian, a broadcaster, among others. So it seems like it's not a hyper-exclusive award in the first place. But yeah, I don't know how much of this really is video game news. Other than, yeah, they founded BioWare. They started it in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. They graduated from medical school in 1995. Is this the doctors?
So many options.
The pair left BioWare and retired from the game industry as a whole in 2012. So here we are in 2018, 6 years later. And so this barely is even video game related at this point. Yeah. They probably got out when the gooding was good, though, to be fair. 6 years ago, BioWare might have been in a much better position than it is now.
How long can this go on? How long can this go on?
Let's see. Gamma Sutra has another article. The UK retailer HMV is facing administration for a second time in 6 years. Administration apparently in the UK is an alternative to bankruptcy. It sounds like it's, for the most part, just a different form of bankruptcy. Really. Let's see. It's putting around 2,200 jobs at risk, which is not a high number for the United States. It might be a high number of jobs in the UK, though. It's a 97-year-old high street chain, which is best known for selling music, DVDs, and video games. And it had a downturn in sales in Christmas, with the DVD sector in particular struggling to maintain momentum. No surprise there. Like,
Who dares summon me?
darn it.
Job's done.
Could have done a couple more hit points of damage.
I hope you like my invention.
Yeah, I don't know if music, DVD, video game stores can succeed anymore.
I hope you like my invention.
Like Amazon.com and Amazon.uk in this case has a good lock on those things. And the problem with like music and DVDs and video games is all of those physical media have the same susceptibility of being damaged in the mail, whether it's delivered to you or bought at the store. You're really not, and that was the number one thing when I was buying DVDs, is that you would buy DVDs, and depending on how cheap the developer of that DVD case was, the DVD may not be connected. It may just be floating in there. It may be all scratched. And the packaging on the outside may be dented and bashed in, and the corners and edges may be burnt, dented. It didn't happen a lot, but those were the main problems. The bigger issue, by far, is music. For the most part, is free. Like, you can listen to the radio, you can listen to internet streaming. You can find music one way or another in any number of ways, legal or illegal. DVDs, not really needed. You can watch over-the-air TV in the UK. You're supposed to pay a license, but a lot of people don't. You can stream Netflix, you can stream Amazon Prime, you can stream Hulu. There's not a lot of reasons to buy DVDs in general, except for extremely rare niche things. That's why I think anime, DVD, and Blu-ray sales still would do you pretty well even today, whereas you really don't need to own too many regular movie Blu-rays or DVDs, unless you're in a situation where you have kids who want to watch the movie over and over again. Even then, streaming will do you fine for a while, until Netflix lost the rights to that movie. And hopefully your kid would lose interest in it. Or if you just happen to be an obsessive collector, there might be something out there. But even if you're a Criterion Collections movie collector, if you're looking for like really, really old movies, you might need to buy DVDs at that point. But if you're looking for very rare movies and old movies and bad movies in general, but the normal person doesn't need to buy DVDs. They don't need to buy music. The only thing you really have to buy, because video game piracy is a little harder, is video games. And I don't think a storefront anywhere can survive just on selling video games. GameStop in the United States certainly is not succeeding that way, particularly since modern consoles are more and more pushing towards buying it digitally anyways. So what does HMV do to upgrade its stores? You start serving coffee to get people in the door. That's what Barnes & Noble in the United States did. You start selling books. Books are a little bit harder to come by. You can certainly go to a library, but frankly, at least in the United States, people are a little bit snobbish and they wouldn't want to go to a library or have to deal with returning a book. So you start selling books. Book selling is not going to make you a lot of money. You start having nerd nights where you're playing Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. You start selling comic books. You find other reasons to get people in the building. You probably want to expand into anything and everything. Start selling clothes. Start selling jewelry. Start selling flowers and gifts, and like expand. The idea of a specialty shop really doesn't work anymore, even if your specialty is 3 different things. Every store needs to be a superstore. Like,
I wonder.
my grocery store sells books, it sells toys, it sells candy, it sells it has a whole pharmacy section, it sells clothes, there's a sub store inside of it that sells jewelry, there's a coffee shop inside of it, there's a deli and a hot food delivery. They just started selling pizzas as an experiment. So even a grocery store where you normally would just go and buy groceries, it has several other reasons why you might go in there and pick up things while you're grocery shopping. Let's see. The other thing to mention, I suppose, in this article, I've spent way too much time talking about it, is that HMV may certainly have had slumping sales just because of the major problems with a no-deal Brexit that the UK is dealing with, where they cannot negotiate any kind of deal to exit the UK, exit the EU, and maintain similar laws and trade agreements. So, theoretically, a UK citizen, after Brexit is enacted, may just get stopped at the border and turned around, trying to leave the United Kingdom into Europe, because there may not be any legal agreement that says they have to accept them. And that is certainly panicking their economy quite a bit. They're afraid that they won't have enough food, they're afraid they won't have enough medicine, they're afraid, and possibly rightfully so, of a lot of things. It's being mishandled terribly. Let's see. Let's get back to video games, though. If I'm talking about Brexit, I've really gone too far. We have a game on Steam called Escape the Police, which looks like it's kind of a mobile game. I like the little animated bounce here as the cars change, but that's kind of silly because it gives the implication that the cars are just inflatable. But the actual game itself, we can see, is a low effort just asset flip game. It's like somebody got through with the menu and that was it, and then they put it out for sale. Early access, $4.24 discounted. Yeah, right.
Unleash me. Mushroom
Sure, send the big guy.
Job done.
Let's see. TechRaptor has an article. The Australian Ratings Board leaks Sniper Elite Volume 2 remastered. So apparently there's going to be a Sniper Elite Volume 2 remaster coming out. I'm still not 100% sold that I would want to play Sniper Elite as a series. Maybe I do it, maybe I wouldn't do. It might be better to play the Sniper series, or a series where you play as a sniper, than for me to try to jump into something like Battlefield or Call of Duty. Because then you could be a little bit slower in your gameplay style, a little bit more methodical. So that might work better for my play style. TechRaptor has an article, and there's quite a lot of this. After all the Christmas sales have happened, a lot of people are giving away free things to bring in, I guess, any stragglers or any people that didn't spend money during the winter sales that were happening. Alright, let's see. If I played a charge.
Mushroom. Your soul is mine.
Sure, send the big guy.
Let's see. This.
Why do you call?
And. Oh man, this is gonna suck if I do this, isn't it? So. This.
Mushroom power.
And next turn I'll play this, then this. I don't want to draw a card, because if I draw a card, then that will have just another card that gets discarded. TechRaptor has an article. Super Meat Boy is free on the Epic Games stores right now. I think there probably were some other points in previous time where you could have gotten Super Meat Boy for free. If you're already committed to breaking up the storefronts and supporting exclusivity, then you can go over to the Epic Store and get Super Meat Boy. Darn it. How about I kill this? And let's see, hit that, and then hit that. Yeah, I think we're gonna have quite a few of these. Made it to rank 18. I think we had already made it to rank 18 though, so that's not specifically an achievement. The achievement would be if I was to stick with this streak and keep on playing and make it up to rank 17. But that's not what I'm going to do. Instead, I'm going to switch over to the European account and hop into that. And while this is loading, I guess we can look at this game, Knights of the Card Table.
Come,
interesting.
sit a while and relax.
What kind of game is this? I'm seeing cards and dice and characters. There's a lot of stuff on the screen. Some kind of menu. I kind of like this animation style. It's a little bit unique. Master over 100 dungeons and 3 worlds in the Dungeon Crawler card game that puts you in control of the dungeon cards. I'm gonna put this on the follow list. Knights of the Card Table is discounted for $4.24. It seems like it's probably taking a cell phone mentality where you have a level and you have 3 challenges, and then putting a different kind of gameplay mechanic on it with cards. It does also though seem like there's a ridiculously large amount of stuff that can be around on the screen, so particularly the characters seem like they can just have things all around the frame. But I'll put this on the follow list and we'll see if people like it or not. Could be also that it's full of no in-app transactions or anything like that, so that seems safe. Seems like a safe worth giving it a chance. Alright. Now on the European account, I guess I really don't have anything I want to override, but I think I kind of need to for just time's sake. Like, this is gonna take forever. 3 mage victories, 3 major shamans, 3 priest or warlock, and 3 rogue or warrior. Something has to be re-rolled here. Normally I wouldn't want to do this, but there needs to be some kind of overlap. Priest. Alright, that didn't help much at all. We've already done the Tavern Brawl too, so for time's sake, let's take Mage on casual and see how this goes. Because we basically need 3 victories in a row on Mage, just to keep it an efficient amount of time. So we're looking for quick disconnects. Unfortunately, there's no way that I know of to force that to happen. I wonder if quick disconnects are actually because the opponent has just so much lag. That could be it, certainly. And while this is loading, we have a game on Steam called Winter Symphony. It has that watercolor art style. It's a visual novel. I actually like this. I like the angles. It looks good. This has like a blur on it, I think intentionally. Almost elf-like character. I don't think she's supposed to be elf-like. However, this looks incredibly creepy and different. And this looks different. So we're seeing some inconsistencies in the art style. Well, this is $7.19. Visual novel. I'll put it on the follow list because I've still yet to really figure out where I'm going with any of that. Like, am I ever going to cover any visual novels or am I not? Until I can make a decision, I don't want to just say all visual novels are not allowed on the wish list for me to come back and have to search the entirety of the Steam store to put visual novels back on the wish list. So I want to have a collection of good ones on the wish list even if I never buy them. Next we have a game on Steam called Blaster Lilo. That is just a side-scrolling shooter game that looks very busy and poorly animated. MS Paint level graphics. See, I can't really justify this as an artistic style. I really can't. It's the beginnings of an artistic ability at best. Blaster Lilo is $1.99 discounted. No, that's not making it to the list. Let's see. I'm gonna wait.
Runs out on me.
Next we have a game on Steam called Laser Party, which has people shooting lasers at each other, but the lasers bend the light, so you have to work in teams or manipulate it so the laser beam hits people in the back. It's a slightly interesting idea. Can you play this single player though? It says single player, but it seems like it's designed more for multiplayer. This is one of those games that feels like it would be a fun hacking mini game, but doesn't really stand on its own. It's $1.79. Yeah, it just doesn't look good enough to justify.
Time runs out on me.
Yeah, just not enough meat on the bone for that type of game. Komatsu has an article. From Software has 2 unannounced titles in development. Take your guesses is the subtitle here. Let's see. There's other games that From Software are making is Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and a game called Daracene. But this came out from an interviewer with
I wonder.
the president of the company. It doesn't really mean anything, though. Like, it really does not mean anything at all to say a company is working on 2 unannounced titles. It could be anything and everything, and they could get canceled. So, alright, let's see. Polymorph this. If you don't want to use the Epic launcher, TechRaptor has an article. You can get Tharsis, 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 I guess, and 7 other games with Good Old Games Connect. And if Tharsis is your biggest one, then the rest of the games are even less recognizable. This, I guess.
An incredible discovery.
It seems like the other games that you get are Descent, Divine Divinity, Dust Force DX, Europa Universalis Rome Gold, Order of Battle World War II, Panzer Corps, Tharsis, Two Worlds Epic Edition. Like, literally none of those games sound like they are recent or interesting. Yeah, and I cover old games. Most of the games I cover are slightly old games, but I don't cover incredibly old things. Things that don't have relevancy too. And those games, pretty much with the exception of Descent, don't feel like they have any relevancy in modern time. Like, Descent has some historical importance that I know of, so I'd say maybe I'd do a 30-minute spotlight on that. But those other 7 games, would never play them, even if I got them. This will be interesting. Play this, then play this next turn. Let's see, we have a game on Steam called Fallen Threats, which looks like a top-down hack and slash, maybe twin-stick roguelike game, but it's selling itself by being in the darkness, so it suffers from being another dark screenshot game. Alright, this. In the turn. So yeah, Fallen Heroes is $8.99 discounted. It's not making it to the fall list. So, TechRaptor has another article. If you don't want to use the Epic Store and you don't want to use the good old Games Connect launcher, you can use Twitch Prime's launcher. Because Twitch Prime Devolver Pack offers 7 free games for the holidays. So these are Devolver Digital games, including Broforce, Crossing Souls. I actually did want to cover that, but I'm not going to cover it. I will claim it since I have Twitch Prime, just to cost Amazon some money, and support the industry theoretically. Maybe it doesn't actually. But yeah, I'd still buy that game on Steam. And I'm still trying to keep everything on Steam. I kind of have to. Hotline Miami 2, wrong number. The Messenger, another good game that, like, at least in this instance, you're actually getting good games through Twitch Prime. I don't need that early. Strafe, The Swords of Ditto. I don't think The Swords of Ditto was received well, but okay. Let's see. And the article goes on to say these aren't the only games you can get with Twitch Prime. Several other packages are still available and will be until December 31st. There's Polykids Poi, Curve Digital Smoke and Sacrifice, Hacknet Complete Edition, and the SNK bundle. So I'm gonna have to spend some extra effort to make sure I collect all of those. If you can collect all of those, I don't think it's a pick and choose situation. So yeah. In all fairness, if you were new to PC gaming and you already had Twitch Prime, I could see the idea there of specifically trying to build out your game library through Twitch Prime, but you're not going to get very far with that, honestly. Like, there's still thousands upon thousands of games that are on Steam that aren't on Twitch Prime or any of the other storefronts, and of those thousands of games, some of those are actually worth playing. Moving on, Gematsu has an article. A game called Picontier, Picontier for PC has been delayed to 2019. It looks like it's a kid-friendly animated RPG, something like a Legend of Zelda. I've not heard anything. It has a Steam Greenlight page according to this article. Picontier has also been announced for release for the PS4, Switch, and 3DS. Does it really have a Steam Greenlight page? It does. This game must have been in development for a long time, because we don't do Greenlight anymore. And it would have just been a Steam Direct release. Alright, let's come over here and keep on playing. Let's see. Gamatsu has another article. Emerald and Myth Ghost, the ship that never returns, launches between April and May of 2019 in Japan. It says it's an exploration-based game. All I'm seeing is a Japanese title with characters. Sounds kind of kid-friendly, but it might not be. It will launch for the Switch via the Nintendo eShop. Yeah, and that's all it's going to be released on, so it's probably a really short game if I was to guess. There must have been some announcements that happened in Japan, and I kind of get that, like, the Japanese probably don't make such a big deal of Christmas. They probably take Christmas Day off, but they don't take like all of the week off. But then they also probably take New Year's off too. So it kind of makes sense that they just get back to work and start announcing more games quicker than Western companies who shut down a week before Christmas and don't start announcing anything new until until a few days after the new year.
Job's done.
Let's see. Gamatsu has another article. Slime Tactics launches between April and May of 2019 in Japan. I imagine these are the same company that announced this, or you know, this is another Nintendo eShop thing, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was a small Nintendo Direct that just is getting mentioned. Slime Tactics is from the developer Altair Works, A-L-T-A-I-R Works. It's an RPG with small pixel graphic characters. I think we've seen information about it before. Let's see.
We have many secrets.
This
Starlight.
and this. And
For Dalaran.
what happens? Let's go ahead and kill this guy.
Job's done.
Gamatsu has another article. Daihanju Manpuku Marche Gourmet Story for Switch launches February 14th in Japan. I'm not gonna bother to try and pronounce spell all of that.
The Sunwell.
This is a cooking game for the Switch eShop. It might come to the West, but if it did, it would almost certainly come with a different name than that. I think you're cooking food for monsters. In a mini game style of game. Yeah, I guess we're gonna get a lot of announcements of games that just are coming out for the eShop, and that's it. Let's
Start right.
I'm about to lose again. I guess if we finish the news and I haven't gotten all the daily quests done, I'm just gonna play off screen.
Was unexpected.
Gamatsu has another article. Demo, that's D-E-E-M-O for Switch. Version 1.5 update launches January 19, 2019, adding 5 new songs. Demo is a game I recall that looked kind of cool and had some music in it. Maybe we should stop this. Like, we've had 2 losses. We're trying to get through this quickly. Let's play with the shaman instead. Like, I never really figured out Demo. It's already available for the Switch, at least in Japan, but I never saw anybody cover it or play it, so it probably hasn't come out to the West.
Versus Thrall.
For Doomhammer.
Like,
For the
the article doesn't mention that at all, though. I think it probably, if I recall correctly, was a little simplistic of a game that just happened to have some intriguing music ideas in it and songs in it. Let's see. Gematsu has another article. Daifugo, that's D-A-I-F-U-G-O, space F.net announced for the Switch. This looks like this is a card game, like regular old poker. Although apparently Daifugo is a card game of some sort that I've never heard of.
There's little time.
Right. Well, that was probably the end of the run of games that were announced there, so we can move on from that. TechRaptor has an article. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, Linux and Mac versions cancelled. So here's the problem. And you know what? Bloodstained, this release, does deserve some special consideration for being a hot mess this year. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon came out, and it was supposed to be out just a couple of weeks, maybe a month before Ritual of the Night was going to be released, and they have just not been able to release the actual game that was kickstarted and deliver. Now they are backsliding even more, even though because they're saying we can't even deliver on the Linux and Mac versions, which you don't say we're not going to ever be able to deliver on these versions unless it's straight up come to we've run out of money, we don't have the budget for it, we're never going to be able to afford that, because you could, and quite frankly, the right way to have done this would have been to say, those versions are going to be delayed, don't worry, we'll get it out to you, and then just kept people focused on the PC version. That way you can you don't spoil or poison the sales of the PC version or the console versions, the Windows version. But this is not even the first time that they've canceled it, because they've already also announced that they halted development on the Wii U version, which they should have never promised, and the Vita version, which they should have never promised. They added a Nintendo Switch version. The reason why they're saying that they're canceling the it is because of... Well, let's play first and then I'll continue talking. Let's see.
We must cleanse the Sunwell.
They said it was canceled, quote, due to the challenges of supporting middleware and online feature support, which I have no idea what middleware they're even using, but that seems questionable at best.
Attack mode!
There we go. Let's see. TechRaptor speculates here. Let's see. It says, no, the article continues, the development team was also concerned with their ability to deliver a product that was up to their standards on these operating systems. That's more realistic, that you just would not be able, you don't know how to make something run smoothly on Linux using open source drivers because you're coding your game directly to either NVIDIA drivers or AMD drivers. So when you see something like this, you can basically assume that if you have a ATI or Intel integrated graphics or an AMD graphics card, this game is going to probably run significantly worse for you than somebody with an NVIDIA graphics card. Generally speaking, for the moment at least, I would recommend anybody get an NVIDIA graphics card if you want to play video games. Alright, so how are we going to do this? This way? That's one victory. Because that's the only middleware that should really exist there. Otherwise, the games for the Mac and the Linux should just be compiled to run as a native executable. Yeah, depending on what other middleware they're using. Let's see. Yeah. So you could read the rest of this article, but yeah, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is looking more and more like it's not going to come out. Inherently, this is a consistent issue with Japanese producers. Like, this is the longtime producer of Castlevania, Koji Igarashi, is the person who's in charge. He's part of the team, at least, behind Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. And yeah, we saw that in Final Fantasy 15 also, where it seems like some of these Japanese producers, they get great ideas, crazy ideas that they are cool when they're implemented, but then they've gotten, at this point, too big for their own britches, to use a colloquialism, and their big ideas don't work in small independent companies, and their often flippant desire to change things at the last minute does not work when you're working under a constrained budget. Like, I know every game developer would want their game to be the most epic game possible, with hundreds of hours and billions of dollars in development in it, but everybody needs to learn to live within a budget when developing games. And my fear is that Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is not going to come out, or it might come out and it might just be a huge disappointment. Like, that is also a very realistic possibility. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Get 5 free Overwatch loot boxes for the holiday season. Blizzard Entertainment. Seems like you just need to log into Overwatch via the Battle.net launcher to get them. That's not too bad. Of course, that does then enter you into the loot box world. And you may not want to get into loot box gambling in general, or you may not want to get into Overwatch in general. TechRaptor has another article. Get Soma free right now as part of the Good Old Games winter sale. So Soma, another good game if you want to go to GOG, Good Old Games, in their curated storefront and only have some of your games there. Like, yeah, a lot of games given away. It's weird that none of them were given away actually during Christmas time. That they're all being given away after the fact. After everybody's gotten their sales, I imagine. It's very possible what's going on here is that the storefronts are all trying to make their end of the year goals as far as revenue and income, and so they're just trying to get as many new people into the storefront to spend money as possible before January 1st. TechRaptor has another article. Get a free Rainbow Six Siege operator or 25,000 renown until January 1st. So yeah, Rainbow Six Siege. They're still very heavily pushing Rainbow Six Siege. Let's see. Can I do this? Do I have any elementals? Not really.
Free me! Free me! Free me!
And see, I think I'm just gonna be lazy and not even break up this recording today. We'll just go for like a 3-hour single episode. That's ridiculous, I know, but heck, I don't really have a good reason to break it up either. That just takes more time. Gamasutra has an article. Get a job. GameLoft is looking for a lead game designer in Barcelona, Spain. It's odd to list a job the week before the new year starts, but whatever. Like, companies generally don't hire permanent positions in the month of December. Instead, what they do is hire temporary seasonal work, and then they fire them, and then usually it's somewhere around February that a department in a corporation has their budget approved where they could hire a new employee. Which kind of sucks if you're unemployed, because if you're looking for a job somewhere between like Thanksgiving and January 31st, like, you're going to have considerably less options than if you were looking for a job any other time during the year. But in the United States in particular, there are a lot of companies that are big fans of hiring temporary workers and or hiring people and then firing them in less than 30 days. So effectively hiring temporary workers whether the employee knew that or not. So finding permanent work in the United States that pays a fair living wage is incredibly difficult. And even if you find one that's paying a living wage, it almost certainly is underpaying you for what it should be. Like, I was listening to a Joe Rogan YouTube clip, and he was interviewing this guy, and he was talking about how he had this bad boss, and this guy was like, he was a mobster or a criminal or something, and he had this bad boss who was totally treating him horribly, and he finally decided he was just gonna go rob his boss's house, and so that's what he did, and he robbed his boss's house. because of how terrible he treated them, which is illegal certainly and not endorsed, but felt like almost righteous payback for how awful this guy was treating him and mistreating him, blatantly breaking the laws, employment laws. Rogue or warrior now. Can we get some rogue victories? Back to video games. We have a game on Steam called Mobile Wars X, which is just a shoot 'em up. Doesn't look terrible, but doesn't look great either. This side art is certainly distracting me from like how ugly this side looks or how generic the middle of it looks. It's a free-to-play game, so I guess the price is right.
Valera versus Anduin.
We have about 20 to 30 more games to cover, so there was a decent amount, but not as many, not quite enough to justify doing 2 or 3 episodes. I could have easily done 3 episodes if I started focusing on doing like hour-long Hearthstone episodes. That would be very possible, but Hearthstone is the only series that's way far in the future. I prefer
The light protects me.
I prefer to actually make longer Hearthstone episodes so I don't have to do so much paperwork as far as scheduling.
Is someone injured?
Let's see. And I need to do scheduling too. That's another thing I've dropped the ball on. But at least I'm doing recording of content instead of doing nothing.
Here we go.
I fight.
TechRaptor has an article, SimCity NES prototype digitized and dissected by the Video Game History Foundation. So apparently there was a SimCity prototype that they got their hands on. Was SimCity not on NES, or was it only on like Super NES? Yeah, that's the SimCity did come out on the Super NES. I think it particularly had the mouse controller support on the Super NES, but it didn't come out on the NES because that would have been a little bit hard to play. But apparently they figured out a way because they made a prototype of it. Let's see.
The light protects me.
This guy's toast.
Gamasutra has an article, Gamasutra's Best of 2018, Top 10 Games of the Year. It's weird that Gamasutra would go into the realm of doing a top 10 games when at least half of Gamasutra's content is published by video game developers themselves. So, I mean, this is saying it was written by the staff, so they're not even putting a name behind it. But you really have to kind of wonder what is the staff at Gamasutra. It's kind of 1 or 2 people, and then the rest of it is just this open forum for the elite game developers to publish whatever they want to publish. And also their parent company owns GDC, the Game Developers Conference. But they give Celeste by Matt Makes Games a listing. They give Donut County by Ben Esposito a listing. They give Florence by Mountains. This game Florence I hadn't even heard about, and like I know absolutely nothing about it, but I can immediately assume that it is a darling of the industry because of cronyism, and that is it. Because I'm looking at this thumbnail of it, and it doesn't look like it's drawn other than just like a pencil sketch for its thumbnail, like no animation at all. And the fact that no real gamers have been talking about it says something amazing. Abby Hepburn, I think, talked about it on the Giant Bomb podcast, but even then, everybody else hadn't even played it. They gave Frostpunk by 11-Bit Studios. I think Frostpunk is overhyped, really. I think it's a mediocre game at best. Hitman 2 by IO Interactive. Hitman 2 I think is probably a good game, but I think it gets overhyped a little bit too. Into the Breach by Subset Games. Everybody seems to love Into the Breach as far as reviewers. The game still really looks like boring to me. I just don't like that animation style.
Here we go.
Alright, let's go ahead and hit this.
Here we
And
go.
hit this. And hit this. And then they're not numbering any of these, by the way. Then they gave Marvel Spider-Man by Insomniac Games. I think that's a fair top 10 number. They gave Red Dead Redemption 2 by Rockstar Games. I think that's fair. They gave Return to Obra Dinn by Lucas Pope. I love Return to Obra Dinn, but in all fairness, I don't think it probably deserves to be at the top 10 of any Games of the Year list, depending on what factors you're using. Because I don't think a lot of people played Return to the Obra Dinn. So how can it be a Game of the Year if it failed to get in the hands of actual players? There theoretically could be amazingly great games that just nobody ever played. Do those games deserve to be on the top 10 list? If you do that, then your top 10 list is filled with a lot of games that have been mentioned so far that nobody's ever heard of. Whereas I think for a game to be in the top 10, it's gonna also have an impact on the gaming community. So, personally, I wouldn't put Return of the Obra Dinn on a top 10 list without specifying that this is the top 10 quality games, not the top 10 most impactful or top 10 best in general, whatever that means, games. They gave a mention to Tetris Effect by Monstars and Resonair. And that is it. So there's no numbering here unless the number is in the order, and if that is the case, I don't see why Celeste is better than Donut Count, which is better than Florence, which is then better than Frostpunk, which is then better than Hitman. Which is then eventually better than Marvel Spider-Man. So if they're supposed to be, these are the top 10 in no particular order, that would be slightly less objectionable if they were in a specific order. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Finding Summer, which looks like it's a platformer. This is actually too detailed in the 3D detail. There's things all in front of it for a platformer. And it seems like there's fire elements that are also distracting. See, this is a game that's too polished for its own good, and you rarely run into a case like this. I mean, it's a basic platformer.
So many options.
That's all I really needed to see. And it's selling itself on the ability to move between a foreground and a background layer, which is going to make the game incredibly difficult. Like, this is a lot like some of the Virtual Boy games where there was a foreground and background layer. Now, that was cool in those unique Virtual Boy games, but I never really wanted to see that idea come back. Yep. This game is too smart for its own good. Like, it would be a nightmare to try to play this. So, yeah, I'm not going to put Finding Summer on the fall list. I'm going to be a little critical there. Generally speaking, I might have given it more of a chance.
Here we go.
Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Make a Jigsaw Puzzle, which seems like it literally lets you just make a jigsaw puzzle. Is this in VR? Like, why do you have to be in VR to make a jigsaw puzzle? That's ridiculous. Like, the worst possible interface you could think of. It's discounted to $2.63. I mean, what were you even thinking? You were gonna make your interface in VR to make a jigsaw puzzle, which then you can play in VR. Like, I would totally have never put VR support in that in the first place. It's so ridiculous.
Here
I
we
guess
go.
for Odd Rogue you are supposed to just do as much damage as possible. Next we have a game on Steam called Poly Island, which is Polygon Island instead of what I would have first thought Polytheism Island. I don't know why my mind goes there, but like, I know there's like a Love Island in the UK TV show. Maybe they brought it over. Yeah, I'm not even really seeing anything islandy here. I'm just seeing a bunch of polygons. This is just a low effort 3D game. Discounted to $2.99. That's not making it to the list. Right.
I wonder.
Can we do this? Or should we do this? I think we should do this.
Here we just do it.
There we go. Next we have a game on Steam called A Maze Valentine. This is from the A Maze series, flooding Steam with generic mazes and just selling the same style of game over and over again. Still surprises me every time that one of these comes out and Valve has not caught on. Clearly there's no employee that is paying attention, because unless there are 100 people looking at games that are submitted, and even if there were 100 people, they would have to not talk to each other and have no documentation and not have any kind of procedure in which they look at what developers make otherwise. Like, there's no reason why these games should be allowed on Steam, because you're just making and selling the exact same thing over and over again, which is against their own rules, unless they've decided that the way they're defining those rules is different.
Here we go.
Maybe the A Maze series does just change it up just barely enough to not catch the ire of Steam. I guess that's the case.
Starlight.
But of course that game's not making it to my fall list. Next we have a game called Enchanted Path, which seems like it's a pretty basic puzzle walking game. The floor sometimes breaks under you. This is one of those games that is a mini game at best and not something that I would want to play just as a solo idea. Like the Lara Croft Go sequel had puzzles like this, and there weren't enough of them, but that still doesn't make me want to play this. It's discounted for $1.19.
I fight. Here we go.
Job's done.
There we go. Steam has a game called VIP, the Action Movie Stars. This is a troll game that is literally using like the Die Hard actors' likeness for a cheap, low-effort beat-em-up game. I'm surprised that more people haven't tried to do troll games like this. Probably because they don't have the ability to depict the characters to look even close to this. Early access, $2.99. Almost certainly this game is going to get removed from Steam. Labeling itself Episode 0 Beta is ridiculous, and you're just not going to survive parody law that way.
So many.
I'm fairly certain, like the Madame Tussauds
Here we go.
Wax Museum has to buy the license to every character that they make, so I doubt that would probably be about the closest instance of it where you could get close. You might succeed in a lawsuit there, but that wouldn't ever go to court, because then that would be too much money for these low effort game designers. Next we have a game on Steam called Super Grower, which seems like you're these boxes that are trying to hit other boxes while avoiding a bullet hell style gameplay. Like the concept itself maybe could have been implemented well, but for a bullet hell game the camera zoomed in way too much. This looks like this would be a nightmare to play. It looks like you're playing with a mouse and moving back and forth with great caution. It's discounted to $1.19. Yeah, that's not one. Alright.
I will silence this scream.
So, not a huge surprise that most of these games are terrible. Next we have a game on Steam, Snowballed Crazy Downhill. This is low polygon, but this might work as a game. Let's see if we can actually see how it plays. That video did not inspire enough confidence, and these screenshots don't show enough variety.
Well played.
So, $4.19 is a little too expensive. Yeah. Again, it's in a bundle with a bunch of other questionable games. Like, a game like this, Snowballed Crazy Downhill, would probably make a lot more sense as a mini game compared to a standalone experience. Like, I could see in a Mario game where you have a snow level and you have to roll a snowball down. Next we have a game called Offendron Warrior, which I don't know if this is a troll game or not with a name like that, but it looks like a really old school arcade, like vector art game, side shoot 'em up game.
For Doomhammer.
So many bad
Watch
games
your
designed to look like classic games. It's free, so I guess the price is right with donationware. So heck yeah, if this was a single developer and this was their first project and they wanted to put it out on Steam and they wanted to pay the $100 for it and make it free, I can't really complain too much about something like this being on Steam, other than the fact that maybe this isn't the place for people to put their programming projects on, or if this is going to be the place, maybe there should be a new category created where it's like student projects or my first game or something like that, something that clearly labels and filters out these kind of things, because even if this is a student project, Offender on Warrior also is a low effort looking game, if not a very low effort looking game. It actually looks pretty good if you're trying for like a Galaga art style. I would just generally say you shouldn't try for a Galaga art style. But yeah, it's not making it to the fall list. Next we have a game on Steam called Steel Alchemist, which looks like a Windows 95 game, and kind of the same thing I just said. Like, if this was a first year programmer's project and they wanted to put it out for free, which apparently this is exactly the same person doing this for both of those games. These don't look terrible as a student project, they just don't stand up to the level of quality that should be there for a project on a storefront. Let's see. And next we have a game on Steam called Space Worms, which looks a lot like the two previous games. Now this one is from a different developer and publisher, at least, and it has more of a simulation element to it, it seems, where you buy and sell missiles to I don't like those space style games, the 4X style games. Early access, $5.99. Yeah, that is a joke. So yeah, Space Worms not making it to the list.
I fight.
Job's done.
Maybe I should have attacked this one earlier. Next we have a game on Steam that, as best I can tell, is OO.Inc., which looks like it's a puzzle game in early access. But frankly, this also is probably a cheap Chinese game. 99 cents discounted. It's Japanese, English, Chinese, simplified and traditional. Yeah, match 3 puzzle game. The lack of effort in putting a decent English name in it eliminates this game more than anything else. Like, if I saw this puzzle game and if it was called puzzle game, match 3 puzzle game, or had a good name on it that I can't think of, I'd give it more of a chance and put it on the fall list. But just calling it OO Inc. is lazy.
You soon.
Let's see. Next, we have another game on Steam called Rolling Bird, which is that same developer and publisher. So he's decided to flood Steam with all of his old projects. Like, one kind of hopes that these actually weren't developed in this year, because if this is the level of education you're getting in 2018 to make video games, if this is what you end up with as a final project, you've really got no place in the industry. These are the kind of games that would have been made decades ago. Let's see. Let's just keep on taking damage. Yeah, Rolling Bird. Another free game with a donationware for 99 cents. Maybe this is a new scam that people are going to try and do, is we'll make the game free and then have 99 cents donationware and see if we can make some money that way. And next game we have on Steam is called Frantic Dimensions, and it's the same developer. Looks like it might be a Chinese developer, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a Chinese individual developer or a company that has been making clones of well-known old arcade games and is now trying to sell it on Steam because they can't sell it in the US, in China anymore because of licenses. This is a Robotron 2048 clone. And all of those games are probably clones of something or something close to a clone. Again, free. Let's see.
This guy's toast.
Job's done.
Actually, I could have hit that and saved myself some frustration. Frantic Dimension. So that one publisher is the only reason we even have so many games that came out right now. It now is pretty obvious when you have one publisher pushing out 5 extra games. That's a lot. That's a lot to release at one time, and releasing them a couple days after Christmas. I would say that, having seen most of the games that were allowed on Steam though, it seems like Valve did not let its guard down during the Christmas holiday. We're not seeing anything approved here that is just totally out of the norm and terrible. But the level of quality of games that get approved on Steam is so low anyways, it would be kind of hard for something to get approved that would have stood out as being particularly awful. It would have to be a game that has actual live action pornography in it, I think, before that would shock me, or anything would shock me.
Hey, lights out.
Here we go.
Next we have a game on Steam called Werewolf Hunter, which looks like bad graphics, Minecraft clone, RPG maker possibly style of game. Like, I don't know if this really used RPG Maker or not, but it looks pretty awful. Early access for $4.99, and they're claiming it's similar to Plague Inc. Evolved. Yeah, right. One more victory. Next we have a game on Steam called Tropitril, which I think this is probably a Russian troll game, if I was to guess, that's using like live action footage, and apparently you're sniping and assassinating somebody. Let's see what languages this is in. It says English only, but I still get the feeling that this is probably like a troll game, probably a Russian troll game. It says that celebrates Romanian communism. So yeah, I would put that in a troll game category. Well, leave the Russian part out, but you know, if it's a troll, there's a decent chance it's a Russian troll.
None will survive.
Percentages alone. So there's this website that got recommended to me by what is it, TubeBuddies, the plugin that's very helpful to do all the things that YouTube's management software should do by itself, called Collab Space, where you like try and match yourself as a content creator on YouTube or Instagram with other people in collab. It says find new collabs and hire creative professionals to bring your ideas to life. I just wanted to mention it. Like, I'm not gonna use it right now, but at some point in the future it might. You know, if somebody starts off with the ambition of wanting to be an artist and make thumbnails for a content creator, then that might be an easier way to hire a person like that who I desperately need than to try and just generally find random people that then I would have to convince like to work for me. And it seems like Collab Space also is kind of a like Fiverr style of business too, where you can make offers for people to, so I could potentially hire somebody to do work for me without having to really meet up with them or try to hire them on immediately as a full-time employee. Ideally, if I had enough income coming in, I would want a full-time employee. I would want somebody that I can support and give a reasonable lifestyle to, and I know that they're not just going to disappear, particularly if they're going to be in charge of making thumbnails. I would want their art style to stay consistent. You know, one thing that occurred to me, and it's really stupid of YouTube to have not done this, and this is barely related, but YouTube should give like a personal assistant, somebody who works for YouTube, who is like a product manager, whose job literally is to show up and be behind the camera every time PewDiePie and some of the other big time content creators are there. Because if you had somebody there and they were they're saying, don't say that, edit that part out, let me do some research on this video to make sure that no controversy happens. If they could be the slight muzzle that YouTube really wants on the top biggest creators for a somewhat reasonable reason, that would be probably a smart thing for them to do and worth the money, for YouTube to just have somebody in the room at all times who acts as the adult. In the movie making world, when you're filming with children or animals, there's usually a person in the room that is specifically looking out for just the well-being of those children and animals, and a similar situation should probably be done.
Here we go.
Which is a basic admittance that probably the big time streamers need to be babysat a little bit, but heck, that's true. Like, even in the old days, artists would often have patrons that were managing their accounts and paying them stipends and making sure that they weren't getting in trouble, bailing them out of jail. Like actors, if movie actors, TV actors, their agents are probably bailing them out of jail and covering up their bad behavior every now and then. Moving on with video game talk, though, Game of Sutra has an article. Steel Division developer Eugene System fires 6 employees involved in a pay dispute, which that doesn't sound right. We're gonna fire you because you think we didn't pay you enough. That sounds shady as can be.
This guy's toast.
Here we go.
Hold it!
But let's read it. Steel Division developer Eugene Sisters has fired 6 employees involved in an ongoing pay dispute, which represents around a quarter of the entire workforce. So they didn't even have 25 employees, from what this. Prior to sacking, there were around 21 developers left at the French studio, which has been lambasted by staff over the past 2 years for failing to compensate them for overtime, ignoring minimum wage laws, and refusing to acknowledge employee contracts. Oh yeah, I remember this story, and this is a big part of why there was rioting in France in the first place, is that there's definitely some wealth inequality that has gotten ridiculously out of hand in France, and probably a lot of places in Europe. It is ridiculously out of control in the United States, but unfortunately the United States is not pro-union enough to even get far enough to
Lights out.
for anybody to be able to fight back on it. The situation boiled over February this year when a group of Eugene developers walked out on strike, although they were ultimately forced to return to work 2 months later after management refused to negotiate. Since then, the Video Game Workers Union of France, the STJV, has promised to help Eugene employees fight for their rights with all the legal means at its disposal, and is in the process of bringing a case against Eugene, I guess maybe is how it's pronounced, to a labor tribunal. For its part, Eugene claims that the firings were unrelated to the ongoing pay dispute, but the STJV has branded the move as an act of retaliation. We believe that this was an act of retaliation, a preemptive move by management ahead of a case over low pay being brought against Eugene Systems by 15 employees as well as the STJV. The case is due to go before the Labor Tribunal in March 2019, wrote the STJV. The idea that there even is a Labor Tribunal is so foreign to me because of just how little power employees have in the United States. It's like, what? There's a special court set up just to stop people from screwing over their employees? That's unheard of.
Here we go.
So I have to hit this, which then would pump this up, which then hit that. If I can play this and this next turn on something, even this would work. The article goes on, the 6 workers were fired under the pretext of having negatively affected the mood, quote, dégrader l'ambiance, end quote, of the studio, or literally translated, I guess that would be degraded the ambiance of the studio, and used insulting language in a conversation that took place in a private chat channel. All 6 were participants in this year's strike. Alright. Let's do this.
Feel the power of will.
Let's see. Those interested can read the STJV's full account of the situation right here. Gamma Sutra links to the rest of the article. Alright, so what's the next thing we need to do? Priest cards. And for time's sake, you should just make a priest deck full of priest cards. Cheap and easy priest cards.
If you make a wild deck, you can
Yes,
only
we
use
know.
it in wild games.
We know. You've told us a million times. We know you don't want us to play wild. We know you want those cards to be useless and valueless so we can sell us new cards. Let's see. Custom priest. Might as well play ranked. Go. We're approaching the end. We still got a few things. We have a game on Steam called Trash Defense, which is just a ugly looking tower defense game. Trash is probably the right name, discounted to 59 cents. No real reason to go any further considering that game. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Scribble Plus, which
I will fight with honor.
says it's a quick draw multiplayer party game designed from the ground up. So is this pictograms? You're supposed to draw something and then the other people are supposed to guess what it is? Yeah, you're not gonna draw anything like this. Yeah, this is just like a low effort categories. I forget the name of the game that it's emulating. But yeah, Scribble Plus discounted to $4.49. I think the Jackbox Party Pack probably has a game somewhat similar to this, or at least a couple games somewhat similar to that. So I don't know why you would pay for this. I think you also probably could get the Jackbox Party Pack, one of them, for less than $5. So yeah, that's not making it to the fall list. Looking at this video that somebody put out, but I can't even tell what this is. It's like, it's called an FMV Christmas 2018 season greeting. I just skipped through it. I saw a bunch of people who might have been actors in some of the full motion video games out there, but that's kind of it. So yeah, that's not something worth talking about. Seems like neither one of us are playing, so let's do this quickly then. Do this, do this, do this,
Right
do
away.
this, and the turn.
Move quickly.
Let's see. We've got a game on Steam called Paintball Chivis, which would be like a Splatoon clone. Is this multiplayer? Or yes, and single player. It's $2.99. Now this looks slightly interesting, but also this looks like this might not be that good. Because it's a Nintendo clone, I'm willing to give it a little bit more of a break. I still probably would prefer to play something like Sinrin Kagura Peach Beach Splash, but if YouTube wouldn't let me stream that, which it very possibly wouldn't, this might be a secondary option if there needs to be a secondary option, which I'm not sure there does. This is a game I guess I'll put on the fall list, and we'll see if it grows an audience. It really would probably need to grow an audience though, because I bet there's very little single player experience in it, and without some multiplayer, that even though I wouldn't really play the multiplayer, it has no relevancy there. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Doka 2 Guts Out Ninja, which is a troll game, obviously. Like, look at this thumbnail and look at the garbage that they're showing you on the screenshots. Just a top-down twin stick shooter. It says it has nudity in it. 49 cents. And clearly this is just trying to look like Dota 2 in a hope that people will buy it on accident.
Bring victory.
Let's just get all the 0 mana spells first. TechRaptor has an article, Beyond Good and Evil 2 Q&A reveals online connection required for the game. I really don't have a lot of interest even in thinking about Beyond Good and Evil 2 until it actually is a finished product, because I still don't really believe that it's going to come out and be delivered. Let's see. Let's do that.
Is someone injured?
Do that.
I can't do
And can't attack in the turn. At some point, I do need to cover and play Beyond Good and Evil 1. I'm fairly certain I have it on Steam. I'm fairly certain it is on Steam to be had. But also, from what I'm seeing about Beyond Good and Evil 2 being barely related to the previous game and being a sequel, I don't think there's really even going to be a connection or a reason to play Beyond Good and Evil 2 because you like Beyond Good and Evil 1. I think it's going to be completely disconnected. Okay. So I'm going to hit this and hit this and then play this and draw 3 cards. And we can just play that. And we can just play that.
Job's done.
And we can play that on that next turn. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Eric Schaefer on Starblow, Blizzard's unreleased sci-fi RPG. Starblow. What's that the name of it? I guess that was the name of it. So I guess it was supposed to be half Diablo and half StarCraft. I kind of don't even care about reading this article because it is just an Activision Blizzard product that will never get delivered, in the same way that like StarCraft Ghost will never be delivered, or any other mini projects I imagine have been made that won't be delivered. Let's see.
What's happening?
Yeah. So yeah, you can go check out this TechRaptor article if you're interested, but in reality, I think most people would rightly be smart to stop caring about Activision Blizzard content completely, forever. Give up the ghost on World of Warcraft, give up the ghost on Diablo. The real developers of Diablo went on to make Torchlight and Torchlight 2, and I think they probably moved on to make something else even since then. As far as Warcraft, there's not going to be another Warcraft game probably ever. As far as StarCraft, there's almost certainly not going to be another StarCraft game ever. So I think it's time to just give up the ghost and move on to other games. And enjoy the ones that existed and see them as you would look at a game that was made by, say, Atari, the original Atari, not the holding company that owns Atari's licenses now. They're just relics of the past at this point. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Let's see. The Gamasutra's Best of 2008, the top 10 game developers of this year. And this is kind of a ridiculous list because it literally is just the developers that, for the most part, made the top 10 games of the year. So the only change I've seen is they're including Microsoft. For probably the only reason they're including is the accessibility controller. They added Motion Twin for some reason. They added Nintendo's EPD department, which made Labo, which I think is ridiculous. They added Sony Santa Monica, which I think is probably pretty ridiculous too. And then they added Ubisoft Quebec. The idea of giving developers an award of sorts is ridiculous. It really is crazy. Because you just don't know what's going on the inside. Right? So you don't know if it's the best developer out of the year. The way I would do something like this, if it was absolutely important to make a list like this, which I don't know why it would be, I would say we're going to anonymously poll all of the employees at all of these companies and ask the employees how they rate their own game via survey, their own developer, their own company. Or instead of doing that much work, I would just say I would make an article according to Glassdoor.com, which company is the which video game companies are the best to work for this year. But then you probably would have to make it well known to the public that they need to go to Glassdoor.com and review their company, so that there's enough entries. But from the outside, being only fed propaganda through the PR department, I don't see how you could give developers any kinds of rewards. You just don't have enough information for that to feel like a legitimate thing to be done. Let's move on. We have a game on Steam called Superhero Fight Club Reloaded. This is another one of those 4 players fighting each other, often in a really small area like this. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything here. And if you're doing the V for Vendetta as one of your characters, you're probably not making a great quality product. $9.99, no discount. Yep, that in no way inspires any interest. I don't know why I could have just healed myself there, but whatever. Only have about 5 more games. Next we have a game on Steam called Forgotten Gifts,
Want a deal?
which is a top-down twin-stick shooter, and it doesn't look like it has very much in the way of animation and tile set. Seems like this has just been themed to look Christmassy, so maybe you're fighting the Christmas trees, or maybe the Christmas trees are just there. Yep, nothing here looks interesting. Discounted for $2.39, but you could buy a bundle for $12.55 from this developer because clearly they've made way too many games. 82 games in there for $12.55. I heavily suspect none of them are worth actually owning or playing. Let's see.
Don't worry, love.
We're about to die over there. Next we have a game on Steam called Oh Trap, which is a couch co-op game for 2 to 4 players, so I'm never going to play it. It looks to me like it might be a maze game or some sort. Actually, I'm having a little bit of trouble trying to figure out what kind of game it actually is. Is it some kind of pathing tower defense game? You apparently place traps. So yeah. It is a tower defense game of sorts. But it's multiplayer only, so no single player. It's free to play, so I guess the price is right, but yeah. Not quality. And with that, we have done all the daily quests on the European account, so at least I can show off the Asian account and play maybe one game before we wrap up this stream. We have a game on Steam called The Colony, which doesn't look like the camera zoomed in correctly. That's just like way too zoomed in. It looks like it's a flying around platformer shooter game where you would get hit quite a bit from things just coming off the screen because of how zoomed in it is. Just bad game design, bad UI design, bad polish on practically everything I'm seeing. $2.99 discounted. That's not making it to the wish list. Alright. So we have a 50 we can re-roll. It seems like I may have had lost one here. Battle cry cards, odd cards, and a druid and hunter victory. And I already have a card pack to open, so let's go ahead and open that. I'm not sure how many common cards I have left to collect in the Asian account, but I know we're not too far. That card pack was from doing the daily quest, the Tavern Brawl. Let's just double check that, yeah. Or maybe it was from a daily quest doing solo adventure. Odd Druid, Odd Hunter is what we're looking for. So what do we got? Token Druid and Hunter. I think if we play Hunter, play ranked, go here, we might be able to, in one fell swoop, get 2 of the daily quests done. let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Puzzle Game for Kids. Anything labeled for kids is questionable in the first place. Honestly, I think a cutout puzzle like this probably shouldn't be done in the digital format and is better done in the real world for hand-eye coordination. And kids that do these levels of puzzles are probably too young to be playing on a PC games anyways. So I think it fails on that aspect in the first place. Otherwise, this looks like it's fine. It doesn't look like it's doing any shenanigans or trickery, at least from what I can tell. It's discounted to $1.33, which is not an incredibly high price, but you know, like I said, hand-eye coordination is what you're trying to teach with that kind of item, so you don't want to have that done in a digital world. It's not gonna be super helpful. And frankly, if your child is raving to play cutout puzzle games, there's a beginning of a question there about whether your child is maybe a little autistic, because they shouldn't be that interested in that type of activity. But it takes a lot. It should take a lot before you even take your kid to a doctor to test it to see if they have some kind of developmental issue, because frankly it could be nothing. It often is nothing too. Let's play this. And
I hunt alone.
Get this done. See, I have an article on Gamatsu. Cytus CYTUS Alpha launches April 25th in Japan. I have no idea what this is, though. It's a rhythm game, which is the perfect version of the popular smartphone title Cytus, with new visuals and over 200 songs. I bet this doesn't come to the West with all those music. That would be my guess. The visuals look pretty weird, too. Even for a Japanese standard, the visuals look pretty weird.
I hunt alone.
Pencil sketch Victorian puppetry style of animation. Alright, we just have like 3 more pages, and then I'm gonna go down my Twitter feed, and then this is probably gonna be the last game, and the rest I'll do off screen. It's been a typical Friday, particularly since I started too late, so I can't really blame anybody besides myself. Where nobody's on the chat, nobody's gonna spend your Friday doing this except for me. Like, pretty much I'm the only one dumb enough to be on YouTube on a Friday evening. Gamatsu has an article, Revolve 8 Episodic Dueling launches January 22nd in Japan, February 5th worldwide. And I don't know what Revolve 8 Episodic Dueling is. The thumbnail is what looks like Snow White surrounded by the 7 dwarves, done in an anime style with a girl who has cat ears as being Snow White. That's what the thumbnail looks like. What the game is, I kinda don't know. Let's hit this. Oh shoot. Screwed that up. Screwed that up. Terrible. Could have gotten 3 more uses of that weapon. It says it has strategically deep... Ooh, I don't think I've ever seen people use real-time mass hysteria before. That may be very well the first time I've seen anybody use that. Says it has gripping character design, strategically deep real-time duels, guide your strategy with 3 tech types, lead your team to victory with 2 skill types, learn the basics with quests. So it might be like a card game, and like, let's look at this gallery. It seems like it's maybe a Clash of Clans style of game. With cards. Interesting. Wasn't really expecting any of that. Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot more characters now than just the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs characters. It looks like they might have all kinds of characters based on fairy tales or other things. The weirdness about this is, if this really is just a Clash of Clans game, having all these animations and characters really isn't going to play a big role. Because that's just not something that's going to matter. Like, extra animations just slow down the game. That's why Clash Royale, that's what I'm actually talking about. It looks like a Clash Royale game. Clash Royale works really well because the characters look good somewhat, but they're small pixels and they don't really matter. You're just trying to play the game and get it done. And even at that, I would say Clash Royale games still take too long. Do I have enough to kill these guys? I guess I do. Let's just go ahead and play this.
Job done.
Yeah, still not sure that Revolve 8 is going to get embraced in the West. Like, cell phone games in general, I'm not sure if they ever going to get embraced. But it certainly does have a slightly different style than what you usually get. Slightly different from what you usually get. It's still heavily going for that Korean. Here's some fancy looking anime style girls in high fashion costumes. So we need to do 8 damage. Can we do 8 damage?
Job's done.
In return. Gematsu has a different article. Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R for Switch has been delayed to 2019. So yeah, that's a fighting game that was going to come out for the Switch. It's been delayed. No surprise there that a Japanese company would delay the development of a game, release of a game. That doesn't, to my mind though, immediately mean that it's not gonna come out. Like, in this case, sometimes it does mean exactly that, but let's see. Are we gonna try and kill this, or are we gonna just wait? I think we're gonna just wait. I have a game on Steam called Mini Max Tinyverse, which looks like it's a tower defense game of sort with just a lot more polished than most tower defense games look, but the camera is zoomed in too high. Feels like this might even be a VR game. It's multiplayer only, early access. Yep. Like so many other tower defense games, not something that is gonna make the cut. I have explosive traps already. I can play a snipe. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Guess we could just heal him back up to just get rid of this guy. He's playing pretty well. Okay, and that puts me at the Humble Bundle store, and we're at 3 hours now for one recording, which is too much probably. The Humble Bundle store, they have a Dungeons and Dragons book bundle that I have no interest in, but I imagine some people would be in. I doubt that there's any other Humble Bundles that are going to come out before the new year. I'm back on my Twitter feed, and I have exactly like 9 new tweets to look at. Some of which are new games that came out on Steam. Yeah, I'm just scrolling down to double check. Yep, and I think that is that. Explosive and Venom +3, and it dies at the end. Wandering Monsters, Snipe, Venomous.
Well played.
Vaporization commencing.
Do that. And in the turn. So, like, we have a game on Steam called Chinese Driving License Test that is probably a terrible, cheap, I'm not even sure you'd really call it a game, as much as it probably is designed to help Chinese people pass the driving license tests, which I assume you need to pass to be able to drive in China, although I'm not sure how enforced the rules might be in certain areas. Let's do this.
The eternal hunt has begun.
There we go. And in the turn. So of course that game's not making it to the fall list. Next we have a game called Hentai Hot Puzzles. Misread it, which it's same old garbage we've seen. This one actually does have nudity in the screenshots, which they still need to address that better. Like that's not the way you should be, the storefront should be. And then we've got a game on Steam called That They Feast, which is just a dark screenshot syndrome horror game where you just wander around. Asset flip style game. Like, nothing here interesting. It's free. That's probably the best thing you can say about it. Alright, this. And then we'll take that. And let's see, do we have something we need to kill? That. Level 9. Let's see, which ones do I already have? Wandering Monster, Explosive Trap, and Snake. So I could go Misdirection, Snake Trap. Let's go Misdirection. And we'll attack here. So that the feast is not going to make it to the wish list, so I'm gonna look at the, I guess you now have to look at the Twitch Prime loot page now to see the Twitch Prime loot. You can no longer just get it as a notification to collect that stuff. And you can share your games if you don't want them via the Twitch Prime, which is kind of ridiculous too. So I failed to get this done. I've already claimed everything. Claimed all the offers, by the way. So yeah, I've failed to get anything done on the European account, but that's perfectly fine. I can do this off screen kind of quickly. The one thing that would be a little difficult is just getting a victory. We've gone for 3 hours, and that is going to be that. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. When you subscribe, click the notification bell. If you want a friend or follow me on a myriad of social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me even further, you can either support me via Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.